During the first 3 days of July 1863, I cannot think of a worse place on the planet to be than where I am right now. We are standing on the site of the Codori Farm just south of Gettysburg. And on the first day of the battle, you would have had men from the Army of the Potomac that would have crossed on the Emmitsburg Road right in front of this farm. On the second day of the battle, there was fighting that took place right in amongst this farm. And of course, on the third day, the Codoris would find themselves right in between the Army of the Potomac and the Army of Northern Virginia when Lee launched the famous assault that has become known as Pickett's Charge. Well, on the second day, there was a guy from the Army of the Potomac who was killed very close to this site. And we have an artifact that was on him that day that we are bringing right back to this site. I've moved a little bit south of the Codori Farm. As a matter of fact, you can probably see it right here behind me. And when people come to Gettysburg and they come out to this part of the battlefield, well, they might think about what happened on the third day of the battle with Pickett's Charge in these fields here behind me. But there was another charge by a brigade from the Army of Northern Virginia that went across these fields and darn near punched a hole in the Union line. That charge was made by Barksdale's Mississippians. Barksdale was this fiery secessionist and very pro-slavery commander of this brigade of Mississippi troops. And stemming off this advance was going to be the 126th New York. These guys had a nickname that was not enviable. They were called the Harpers Ferry Cowards. During the Battle of Antietam, well, they basically were basically the recipients of the largest capture of U.S. troops all the way up until the Battle of Bataan. All right, now I got to give credit to my buddy Mike Lentz for pointing me to this monument right here. Again, there in the distance, you can see the Codori Farm. We are just south of that. And this is a monument to the 3rd Brigade of the 3rd Division of the 2nd Corps. So the 2nd Corps was commanded by Hancock, and the 3rd Brigade was also known as Willard's Brigade. George Willard was the son and grandson of general, so he's part of a military family. He'd been in the Mexican War and was part of the 125th New York. And this brigade, of course, is going to surrender, as I mentioned, at Harpers Ferry, branding them as the Harpers Ferry Cowards. They were held for a little bit, and then they were paroled and exchanged later on. But anyway, when they come here to Gettysburg, again, they're going to be part of the 2nd Corps. And when Barksdale is launching his charge across these fields right here and is looking to punch a hole in the Union line, well, Hancock is basically trying to plug the gap with anybody he can, and Willard is going to lead his brigade against Barksdale's charge. And as they set out against the Mississippians, he shouts out, "Remember Harper's Ferry." So these guys are going to be trying to restore their honor here at Gettysburg. Something that's kind of ironic is that Barksdale's Mississippians had been one of the people that they fought against, or one of the brigades, that they fought against at Harper's Ferry. But anyway, Willard is going to be killed in that assault. He's going to get hit in the head with an artillery shell as the brigade was pulling back to Union lines. And we have an artifact today from another guy who was killed on July 2nd from the 126th New York.
I'm standing at the Codori Farm on the Emmitsburg Road on the Gettysburg battlefield, and I'm holding in my hand a Civil War, what we call a bullseye canteen that was carried in the Civil War by a man named Henry Wilson of the 126th New York. And the 126th New York were heavily engaged here on July 2nd. They started out near Plum Run, which is behind me, and came out towards the Emmitsburg Road. Now, Henry Wilson was killed on July 2nd during the battle, and we don't know when he was buried because he would have been kind of in no man's land, but eventually his remains were recovered, and he was buried in a spot just south of Nicholas Codori's barn, which is right here. So that means he would have been buried right out here in this field. Now we know this because this canteen has his name and an old tag. The tag has fallen off, but luckily it was preserved. It had some glue on the other side that doesn't look as nice, but these old museum tags are the way these types of relics were documented back in the early days. And this was in an early Gettysburg museum. Now we have it at the Gettysburg Museum of History. So he laid out here for a while, but during the process of consolidating all the remains in one place, Henry Wilson's remains were dug up and taken to the Gettysburg National Cemetery, where they rest today. So we're going to also go visit him, and also we're going to go visit the spot of the 126th New York monument.
All right, we've moved over now to Ziegler's Grove, and of course this is the spot where the Union line would have held on the third day of the battle against Longstreet's assault or Pickett's charge, whatever you want to call it. And after the second day of the battle, well, the 126th New York got repositioned right here in this area. So they were originally commanded by a colonel named Eliakim Sherrill. And when Colonel Willard was killed near the Codori Farm on the second day of the battle, well, Sherrill got bumped up to brigade commander, and a guy by the name of James Bull took command of the regiment. Sherrill would be mortally wounded here at Ziegler's Grove on the third day of the battle. But anyway, here is the monument to the 126th New York. The men who had formerly been known as the Harpers Ferry Cowards. Something that's kind of interesting about this, these guys had something to prove. Like they wanted to clear their name. Of course, they didn't like being called cowards. And during the Battle of Gettysburg, there are going to be 3 men from this regiment who are going to be awarded the Medal of Honor. But yeah, there's the monument to the 126th. All right, we're going to dodge over to the cemetery now.
We're at the Gettysburg National Cemetery in the New York section. And according to our paperwork, we're in the correct row and number of the final resting place of Henry Wilson of the 126th New York. Now, one of the things that was surprising when we came out here was that his stone here says the 120th New York instead of the 126th. Well, we're pretty sure this is the right location, but we talked to somebody who knows a lot about these stones just to make sure, and they said that there's numerous mistakes out here. And one of the theories that we were talking about was that, you know, he was buried out near the south of the Codori barn for several months before the body was moved here. And so he would have had a wooden headboard of some type, and they probably would have just had his name carved into that or painted into that headboard. So in those months of wear and weathering, it's very easy for 126 to look like 120 after being exposed to the elements for several months. So we believe this is correct. We think that the grave marker is not correct, but it wouldn't be the only one out here. There's a lot of them that are off a little bit. But this is what we think is the final resting place of Henry Wilson, who carried this canteen and was killed with this canteen. And interestingly enough, the 120th New York, which was part of the Excelsior Brigade, was fighting in the same general area as the 126th New York. So if the people who were trying to catalog these graves, it would probably be a pretty easy mistake to make, to get those two regiments confused, because they fought in generally the same area during the Battle of Gettysburg.